Alright, so following final cuts, the Eagles just made a surprising flurry of roster moves, as not only did they bring back some notable players on the practice squad, but they also cut a few guys who made the initial roster, while also signing a couple more guys to the active roster, including a new intriguing offensive lineman and a former Eagles starter at safety. Oh, and the Birds are not done yet, as Howie Roseman made it clear that he is going to stay aggressive, and the Eagles' latest trade rumors linking them to both Travon Walker and Jaelan Phillips only add fuel to that fire. So how realistic are these rumors, and also, who else could the Eagles add? Plus, we got an exciting update on Nakobe Dean and multiple other injured stars. So let's talk about that and all the other latest Eagles news starting right now. Alright, so easily one of the biggest question marks for the Birds following NFL roster cutdown day is their situation at kick and punt returner, as there isn't really a player on their initial 53-man roster that could be classified as a return specialist. Now, obviously, they have guys that could do the job, with the most obvious example being Cooper DeJean, as he was the one primarily returning punts for the Birds last year, and he was pretty good at it. However, having one of your best and most valuable players on defense return punts multiple times every single game isn't exactly ideal, and it's a risk. So I'm sure they'd like to change that up this season. And they still do have other options like Jahan Dotson, John Mechie, or even Darius Cooper. However, if the Eagles want to bring in somebody who is going to be a surefire good punt returner, assuming he's healthy, then the perfect opportunity just may have came about. As on cutdown day, the Los Angeles Rams waived former Eagles wide receiver and returner Britton Covey, who, if you'll remember, prior to being injured for most of last season, was one of the best punt returners in all of football for the Eagles in the 2022 and especially 2023 season. So with him now being on the open market and having that familiarity with the Eagles special teams operation, you have to wonder if the Birds could give him a call and look to bring him back at the very least on the practice squad and then maybe elevate him for week 1. And personally, I really like that idea. I mean, Covey's just so easy to root for given that he was undrafted and has been really an underdog for his entire football career just given his small stature at 5'8". And again, when he was here and healthy, Covey was one of the best returners in all of football. Now, yes, I do get the injury concerns and all that, but even so, I see no harm in bringing him back on the practice squad to see if he could possibly stay healthy and be the answer at returner this season. But, that's just my opinion, but what do you guys think about the possibility of maybe bringing Britton Covey back? But switching over from Covey to another undrafted Eagles receiver, I want to take a step back and highlight just how crazy the Darius Cooper story really is, as, of course, he officially made it onto the Birds' initial 53-man roster after having an incredible training camp. But his path to get there was just insane and honestly near impossible when you look at it, because as Brennan Deeg pointed out, this is a guy who was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school. He went to Tarleton State of all places, put up crazy numbers there last season. Then he came to the Eagles as an undrafted free agent, balled out during training camp, and won a roster spot in a super crowded wide receiver room against all odds. I mean, that's just insane and a truly inspiring story. So once again, congratulations and shout out to Darius Cooper. And honestly, I could not be more excited about him because not only did he make plays all summer long, but he also just looks like a freak of nature at the wide receiver position. So I feel like he's got some untapped potential, and I just personally cannot wait to see what he can do this season. Also, real quick, a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Chubbies. Chubbies is known for their shorts, swimwear, and a wide selection of other cool apparel, but they also have an awesome collection of officially licensed NFL gear, including merchandise for our very own Philadelphia Eagles. And that includes shorts, swimming trunks, and shirts in a few different styles. And they actually sent me their Eagles polo shirt, and I really like it. I mean, it's a very unique design, it's super comfortable, I like the material, it fits well, and, I could wear it out, I could wear it watching a game, or I could wear it recording these videos. And if you're an Eagles fan or just an NFL fan, then I'm sure you'll love their NFL collection too. And again, they also got a bunch of other cool stuff. And you can actually get $10 off using promo code PhillyFan21 at chubbyshorts.com/PhillyFan21. Again, that's code PhillyFan21 for $10 off at chubbyshorts.com/PhillyFan21. And also, with George Kittle, Ian Rappaport, and others coming together to create the Chubbies League on NFL Fantasy, you have a chance to win some gear for free. Each week, the top 5 scorers will win a chance at a Chubbies polo and shorts combo with their team's logo. The grand champion gets the chance at the ultimate fan experience, a 5-city, 5-stadium NFL game tour with a +1. while the fantasy flop faces a hilarious and unforgettable punishment that only Chubbies could pull off. So head to chubbyshorts.com/thechubbiesleague to learn more and get ready for an awesome fantasy football experience. And again, you can get $10 off Chubbies apparel using code PhillyFan21 at chubbyshorts.com/PhillyFan21. And be sure to let them know that I sent you. And again, thank you to Chubbies for sponsoring today's video. Moving on though, aside from the Eagles' final roster cuts to trim down to the initial 53-man roster, we also got some big news on injured linebacker Nakobe Dean on Tuesday. As of course, with him still recovering from the torn patellar injury that he suffered back in January, Dean was placed on the physically unable to perform list, or PUP list, to begin the season, meaning he's not going to be eligible to play in the team's first 4 games. But after that, it seems like Nakobe Dean is going to be ready to go, or at least he thinks so, as on Tuesday, he posted this photo on his Instagram story saying, quote, "See y'all week 5. So there you have it, straight from the source himself. Nakobe Dean will almost certainly return in the Eagles' week 5 game against the Broncos, or at least that's how things are looking right now, which that's obviously exciting because, before he got injured, Nakobe had a great season last year, so it'll obviously just be nice to get him back. Now, my question is, just how healthy is he going to be? And what version of Nakobe Dean are we going to get? Now, hopefully he's close to fully healthy, but if not, that could be an interesting storyline to follow depending on how the rookie linebacker Jahad Campbell looks during the first part of the season. But, obviously that's way down the line. We don't got to think about that right now. And again, it's definitely good news that it's looking like Nakobe Dean is going to be back by week 5. But now, moving on, obviously, it's been an incredibly eventful week for the Eagles in terms of making roster moves with the cut-down deadline and all that. But even with the initial 53-man roster being set and the season being right around the corner, Howie Roseman made sure to make it clear that he and the Birds are not done yet, as if they feel the need to make a move to bring somebody in, they will not hesitate to pull the trigger, whether that's now or even weeks into the season.
Yeah, I would say this. I would say we're not done here. We're not done. We'll see what happens in the next 24 hours. I think I said this the last time we spoke. We got a lot of picks here, and we're happy to use those picks in the draft. But I think for us, the early part of the season, September, we got to see what we have, and if we need something, I'll do whatever I can to help this football team and be aggressive. And Jeffrey gives me that opportunity to do that. And so, I don't think that we're done. I don't think this is necessarily, this is a work in progress.
Yeah, so again, the Eagles are clearly not done making moves to improve this roster. Obviously a big part of what they're doing this week is filling out the practice squad, which more on that later. But Howie also made it clear, if he feels the need to go add somebody, whether it's signing someone or making a trade, then he's going to be aggressive to make that happen. And I think based on what he said there at positions like safety and cornerback specifically, the Birds are probably going to use this early part of the season to see what they have there with guys like Sidney Brown or Andrew Makuba, Adoree Jackson, or maybe even Jacorian Bennett. And if they don't like what they see, then Howie will go out and bring somebody in. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out and what possible moves the Eagles could make over these next few weeks. And actually, while we're on that topic, Howie Roseman and the Birds did go out and make a splash late on Wednesday night as they brought back former Eagles safety Marcus Epps by signing him to the active roster. And this was a move that was speculated could happen after he was released from the Patriots on Tuesday, and then Tristin McCollum was surprisingly cut on Wednesday, just a day after making the initial roster. So people were wondering what was up with that, and here we have our answer as Marcus Epps is back. And I think this is a very good move, as of course, Epps spent the better part of 4 seasons with the Birds from 2019 to 2022, and he worked his way up from just a depth piece to a starter on the Eagles defense in the 2022 season, and a pretty quality one at that, putting up a career-high 94 tackles in that 2022 Super Bowl year. And from there, he obviously signed with the Raiders, where things didn't quite go how I'm sure he would have wanted, as he did have a solid season in 2023, but didn't quite live up to how good he was in 2022, and then in 2024, Epps played in just 3 games before suffering a season-ending ACL tear, and then of course, he went on to sign with the Patriots this offseason, but he did not make the final roster. So, obviously, things have very much gone downhill for Epps since he left Philly, and even then, like when he was with the Eagles, he had his weaknesses, particularly in coverage, and who knows if he can even get back to where he was in 2022, but hey, best case scenario, he does, and he's a really good backup safety for this Eagles team that you can trust to play major snaps if need be. and if not, I still think he's a good depth piece at safety, and obviously he has familiarity in Philly. So again, overall, I really like the move. Moving on though, the Eagles may not be done there, and there have been some rumors swirling recently that the Eagles could actually look to make one last offseason splash by trading for a young star at edge rusher. And it all mostly stems from a recent report from Eagles reporter Ed Kratz saying that both the Jaguars' Travon Walker and the Dolphins' Jaelan Phillips could be names to watch as potential trade targets for the Eagles. And both these guys could be very interesting and exciting additions to this Eagles defense. I mean, for starters, Travon Walker is obviously a guy that has been linked to the Eagles for a while now, and for good reason, as the 2022 number 1 overall pick is obviously a Georgia product that played with all the other Philly dogs in college, and he's a really good young pass rusher, given that he's put up sack totals of 10.5 and 10 the past 2 seasons. And he could add a lot to an Eagles defensive line that already features young stars like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, who of course happen to be former teammates of Walker's. And I mean, assuming you could get him for a good price and you could afford to pay him a nice extension, adding Walker would be amazing for the Eagles. Now, the problem is, not only did Ed Kratz say that you would likely have to give up a first-round pick next year, along with somebody like Keely Ringo, and maybe even another third-round pick to top it all off to get Walker, which, personally, that price sounds a little bit high to me, but, I don't really know. But Walker also has 2 years left on his contract, including a 5th-year option, and those cap hits equal out to $11.8 million and $15.1 million respectively, which, sure, those numbers aren't insane, but Walker also would then have to be paid a big contract extension. And with the Eagles having to pay multiple guys over the next few years and already having multiple big contracts on the books, I'd say adding Walker into the mix would probably be pretty darn difficult, especially if they would have to give up that much in a trade. So I'm no insider. I don't know exactly what the Eagles would have to give up in a trade. I don't know the ins and outs of the cap situation over these next few years, but just based on all the information that we do have, I'd say a trade for Travon Walker is probably still pretty unlikely, although I won't say it's impossible. Now, on the other hand, I do actually think that Jaelan Phillips is a bit more realistic of a target, as not only has he not played very much the past 2 seasons, appearing in just 12 games of a possible 34 while dealing with various injuries, but he's also going into the last year of his rookie contract, and the Dolphins just signed an edge rusher not too long ago in Matthew Judon, so that could make Phillips expendable, especially if they aren't planning on extending him after this season. And, I don't think it would cost the Eagles nearly as much to trade for him as it would to trade for Walker. Now, it would be a risk because of Phillips' injury history, like I just mentioned, but if he can just stay healthy, he could be a great addition to the Eagles' defensive line, as he put up 6.5 sacks in 8 games in 2023, and 7 sacks and 8.5 sacks the 2 seasons prior. So again, I certainly think Phillips is an interesting and much more realistic target that has a lot of upside. Now, I still don't think it's super likely, but again, he is definitely a name to keep your eye on moving forward. Moving on though, the Eagles actually did make a somewhat unexpected roster move on Wednesday morning, as just one day after he somewhat surprisingly made the active roster, the Birds released second-year offensive lineman Trevor Keegan. And I say this is unexpected because of the timing of it. I mean, he just made the roster not even a full day before, so the fact that he got waived Wednesday morning had pretty much all Eagles fans asking one question: what could Howie Roseman be up to now? And just a few hours later, we had our answer, as the Birds signed former Rams center Willie Lampkin, which, I'll admit, that's definitely interesting and also a little confusing, considering that Keegan was an Eagles draft pick just last year in the 5th round, while Lampkin went undrafted this past April. He's also currently dealing with an injury that he suffered in the preseason. He's only 5'11", which is very undersized at the center position, and overall, he's just more of a project player. However, on the other side of that, he's a guy that also has a lot of good athletic traits. He's a center with some quickness and is able to get out in space, which we know the Eagles love. And he also had a great training camp and preseason, specifically being graded the best offensive lineman in all of the NFL preseason by PFF. So he definitely has some potential, and my guess would be that Jeff Stoutland probably had a hand in this move as well, as he probably sees something in him. And, now Lampkin comes to the Eagles to be another depth piece at center and specifically on the interior of the offensive line. So, definitely an intriguing move. There's things I like about it. There's things that I also don't like about it, but I'm just going to trust Howie and Stout's judgment that they made the right call here. Now, moving on, the Eagles also made a bunch of other moves on Wednesday. First off, with adding a bunch of guys to the practice squad, including players they waived on Tuesday like Chance Campbell, Elijah Cooks, Kenyon Green, E.J. Jenkins, Brandon Johnson, Patrick Johnson, Cameron Latu, Terrace Marshall, Kyle McCord, Perry Nickerson, Holland Pierce, Antoine Powell-Ryland, Eli Ricks, and Andre Sam. And easily to me, the biggest of those signings are Kenyon Green, Patrick Johnson, APR, and Eli Ricks. Especially excited to get those guys back, even more so for those last three. And then they also added Broncos running back Audric Estime to the practice squad as well. And on top of that, the Eagles also signed someone to the active roster that they waived on Tuesday, that being long snapper Charley Hughlett, which to me, that's no surprise. I mean, they needed a long snapper at the end of the day, so Hughlett was going to work his way onto the active roster somehow. And also, in addition to that, the Birds did lose a few guys that they waived on Tuesday, those being tackle Kendall Lamb, who went back to the Dolphins, and much more notably, wide receiver Ainias Smith, who ended up going to the Panthers. And this is unfortunate because Ainias did improve a lot this offseason, and with him being a draft pick of the Birds just a season ago, it would have been nice to see him stick around on the practice squad and hopefully develop a little bit more, but, unfortunately, he is now gone, so best of luck to him. Moving on, though, the Eagles also did get some more pretty big news on Wednesday afternoon, as several key stars returned to practice in preparation for the Week 1 opener against Dallas. Those being star receiver A.J. Brown, who of course was out for pretty much most of training camp with a hamstring injury, but reports suggested that the Eagles were just being cautious with him and trying not to rush him back too early, and it seems like that was true, as now the camp is over and the preparation for Week 1 is officially here. AJ was back out there, so that's definitely a great sign, and it's also a great sign to see left guard Landon Dickerson back out there as well. As the guy's, a couple weeks removed from having knee surgery to repair a damaged meniscus, yet he was back out there at practice on Wednesday. So, again, that's definitely a great sign for his chances of playing in Week 1. And by the way, just shout out to this guy. How tough do you have to be to get surgery a couple weeks ago when you're already back practicing? And you're probably going to play Week 1. That's just crazy. But, moving on, you also have Andrew Nakobe. And there was some news on him as well, as he actually wasn't out there for practice on Wednesday, as he continues to deal with a hamstring injury, but there is still plenty of time for him to get healthy in time for Week 1. And, we'll see if it's him or Sidney Brown starting to begin the season. But now, like Howie said, obviously the Eagles are not done yet, and there could be plenty more moves happening over these next several weeks, or even in this 1 week in the lead up to the start of the regular season. And you guys know I'm going to be covering all that just as well as everything else Eagles related this entire season. So if you don't want to miss anything, then make sure you subscribe and you turn on notifications. And also drop a like down below to show some support, because it really does help me out a ton. Let's see if we can get to at least 500 likes on today's video. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And if you do want to watch another Eagles video going over roster cutdown day and everything that happened on Tuesday, you can check this out right here. Now, with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.